We're now going to turn our attention to the National Data Protection Bill, and to look at this, we have with us the National Commissioner and the Chief Executive Officer of the National Data Protection Bureau, Dr. Vincent Olatunji. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today, sir.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we know that the bill currently is before the National Assembly. Has that restricted the board in carrying out, some of its functions, so to speak, now?
Yeah, let me start by saying Happy Workers' Day to all Nigerian workers who are major data subjects, and they constitute a major database to their respective organizations, their telcos, their financial institutions, the general company, and so many others. And because all we are talking about is about human beings, about people, it's about how to protect their identity wherever they are. And on the issue of the bill that you mentioned, without a principal act of National Assembly, it's very difficult for an organization to really work, make impact, and excel. But we're happy that with the regulation that we're currently using, which was issued under NIDA in 2019 as a subsidiary legislation, we were able to make some considerable impact through that regulation, and that is part of what even led to the bill that is currently with the National Assembly. And hopefully, before the end of this administration, it will be passed and assented to by Mr. President.
Absolutely. So Nigerians will be curious to know because we've been hearing about data protection, and they're beginning to wonder what kind of data are we talking about, because there is so much that comes under data. Is it my data on the internet? Is it my data in government institutions? What data particularly are we looking at?
Thank you. What we are talking about here is personally identifiable information, personal data. That is your names, your email addresses, your telephone numbers, your telegraphic informations, your biometric information, your health records, and so on. These are all data. But we have what we call PII, that is the personally identifiable information. And we also have what we call sensitive information, like the health records, your biometric records, your political lineage, your labor lineage, your sexual orientation, and so on. These are sensitive information that require additional layer of safeguards in terms of protection, in terms of privacy, and so on. And what we are talking about here is even in fulfillment of a constitutional provision. Like, for instance, our Constitution, 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as amended, especially in Section 37, it talks about the need to protect your names, your house addresses, your telephone conversations, telegraphic information, and so on. So what we are doing now with the bill and with the Bureau is to give life to that constitutional provision. It's also in fulfillment of a lot of international treaties. For instance, Malabo Convention of 2014, in which all African countries, 54 African countries, were mandated to set up, to have their data protection laws and set up their data protection supervisory authorities. Even at the level of ECOWAS, as far back as 2010, there was a protocol that all ECOWAS nations must have their laws in terms of data protection and privacy and their supervisory authorities. And as we speak, in Africa today, 36 African countries currently have their data protection laws in place, and 23 have their data protection laws and data protection supervisory authorities. And Nigeria, as the giant of Africa, as you keep saying, we should take the lead with our population. We are talking of the population of over 200 million people. Absolutely. That is the largest constitution of data subject in the whole of Africa. So the issue of having a law, having a supervisory authority is just what we should do as a country, taking the lead in Africa and being in line with global best practice.
So let's look at breaches, because we spoke about privacy. We've seen data breaches, here and there. What does the bill, in terms of prosecution, what will we be seeing when the bill is eventually passed?
Yeah, maybe I should want to give a foundation. The bill has 12 major parts. Maybe for want of time, I'm not able to link.
Let's just look at the prosecution.
But looking at the area of prosecution, there are some things that are laid down clearly in the bill that if there's any breach, there is the highest maximum that you can pay. That is 2% of your gross annual as a company for the previous year. For instance, if there is a major data breach in an organization, and we investigate and discover that, yes, there was actually a breach, the company is liable to the payment of, for instance, if their turnover, a gross earning for last year, for was about 200 billion, they will pay 2 billion to government. And it has happened in several clubs, the likes of Meta, where it was
Google.
Facebook, Google, Marriott, British Airways. A lot of organizations are paying huge fines, and that is what we are coming to do in Nigeria as well.
Individually, what's the penalty?
Penalty, you can be prosecuted. Good enough, there are a lot of constitutional provisions too that will allow you as an individual to seek for redress in court if there's any data breach or whatever. But we can take whoever is liable. We can take them up, take them to court, and charge them to court, and we can get they can be prosecuted, and we can press charges against them. And on the part of the data subjects, one good thing that this law is bringing is the fact that there is opportunity for the data subject to be compensated, which we didn't have in the regulation. But what we try to do with the bill is to bridge a lot of gaps that we identified in the regulation. Now, a data subject whose data has been breached has the right to pray for charges, and we have even pressed that such a data subject should be compensated.
Absolutely, we can't wait for the bill, to be finally, ratified, by the National Assembly. But one of the things that people keep saying is the fact that Nigerians, we know how to write beautiful documents. Well, implementation becomes the issue. I hope this won't be the case.
Yeah, yes, it's one thing for you to have a beautiful document or a very good law that speaks to what is happening in your country. It's a completely different thing for you to be able to implement it. Where you have a law and there is nobody to implement it, it won't do anything. And that is why the Nigeria Data Protection Bureau, which in the bill has been put to transition to Nigeria Data Protection Commission, is all out to give full effect to the law that is being expected to be passed. So in terms of implementation, we are already doing it. Even using the regulation, we are already doing that. And in terms of enforcement, in terms of awareness, in terms of capacity building, in terms of job creation, between where we started and now, we've created over 9,000 jobs in this sector. We have a sector with a combined annual of over 5.5 billion within 3 years. Now, in terms of international recognition, Nigeria is being looked up to. In terms of data privacy and protection, you guys are doing very well. And we're building capacity, building a whole ecosystem of job seekers.
Well,
which is...
That sounds commendable, looking at the fact that we have a high number of unemployed, youth in the country. I think this is a good place to, hold this conversation. I'd like to say thank you for joining us today on the show, Dr. Vincent Olatunji, National Commissioner as well, Chief Executive Officer of the National Data Protection Bureau. Thanks again for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And that's where we are again on the show. Like I said, we first of all took a look at the National Workers' Day and, of course, the Jagba syndrome. Hopefully that doesn't continue moving forward, and hopefully the National Data Protection Bill will also be passed by the National Assembly, and, of course, data breaches would be prosecuted to the letter. But that's where we'll wrap it up on the show today. Thank you so very much for watching. I'm Victor Matthias. Happy Workers' Day again, and bye for now.